Welcome to another segment from AlphaCars Service Center. My name is Dimitri. We are working today on a gorgeous 2004 Mercedes CLK500. This is a rare breed these days because it comes with one of the best Mercedes V8 engines, and it has a full AMG outfit. So it's got the looks and almost the performance of AMG car without the cost of maintenance and potential reliability concerns. So we are looking at one very small seepage of the, what we believe it's a transmission fluid, and the seepage, the wetness is coming right from the seam between the engine and the transmission. So the possibilities are that this is the input shaft seal into the transmission, right from the torque converter, could be potentially the gasket from the oil pump housing. And the next step we're gonna do, we're gonna disassemble some of the parts here, and we're going to pull the transmission off. The beauty of the rear-wheel drive vehicle, not to mention it's fun to drive, but it's also kind of easy to work on. It still takes a lot of time, but it's almost an enjoyable and fun work here in the shop at AlphaCars Service Center. So let's get started. So you can see the heat shields are off the car. The little cross member for the transmission and the transmission mount are off. And we're getting ready to detach the drive shaft. We're gonna try to keep the exhaust system in place, but it may have to come off the vehicle. And you can see we made the harness disconnection. You can see the harness connectors here. We have them off, and we're gonna check this harness connector. It looks like it's nice and dry. Sometimes they have the seepage of the transmission fluid through the connector, so this one looks good, but we're gonna see it when we have it off the vehicle. And here is the little drip of oil. So with the drive shaft off the vehicle and all the other goodies removed, we have the transmission out, and we just did a full inspection, and there's actually no leak from the transmission, or should we say no major leak from the transmission. There was a very little bit of wetness there, but we're still gonna replace the input shaft seal. We also did a very thorough inspection of this joint, and it's bone dry, so we're not gonna touch that. That's all good. But the most of the leak was happening right from the rear main seal. So we are going to replace that, and we also did the inspection of some of the other things we have easy access to, and they all look very, very good. So we are going ahead with getting the seat seals and putting them in, and then doing the installation. And I also want to mention that on this job, we managed to keep the exhaust in place. You can see we lowered it. I haven't talked to the technician. We're gonna look at see if we need to install the seal kit in this electrical plug. It does look pretty dry. And we're looking at the output shaft seal, and it does look nice and dry as well.
Now we've removed the rear main seal. We can see the gap it usually seals there around the end of the crankshaft. Of course, we're gonna clean things up a bit more. We've already started cleaning just a little bit. We're actually just waiting on a new seal to arrive for that. And as far as the transmission, the new seal is in. You can see shiny and new there. Everything's very clean, proper installation. Of course, you do lose the transmission fluid, or some of it, when you do this job, especially when you pull the torque converter. So the transmission, once it's back up in the car, will be getting a service as well. So really, with the fresh seals and then the fresh transmission fluid and service, it'll really drive like a new car and be leak-free for a very, very long time. So what the technician just did was use the applicator tool, which allows the seal to slide on the end of the crankshaft with all of the edges seated properly. So then none of these edges will roll or fold over, which can cause a leak when installed properly. So now what he's gonna do is just kind of tap this in evenly to get it to seat in all the way, because that applicator tool kind of uses this alignment dowel and some of the bolt holes on the end of the crankshaft to perfectly center it. So then, as you saw he just slipped it on there. And now all you have to do is walk it in the rest of the way so it's flush with the housing. So you can see he has the soft tip mallets. And just like that, we can see it's nice and flush and even. Of course, using the kind of mallet technique like that with the soft ended mallet, the mallet's gonna bottom out on the housing when this is seated properly. So now we can see how nice that looks. As I mentioned, the edge of this seal, we can see that kind of lip of the seal is perfectly seated. Because a lot of times, if this is installed improperly, you'll put everything back together and immediately you'll have a rear main seal leak again. So depending on the manufacturer of car and how this is designed, some of these can be very finicky as well, so just keep that in mind. Now the technician has the flex plate just set back into place. You can see there are no bolts in here yet. We did get brand new bolts as they are one-time use. And we can see it's just on the locating dowel pin there, as these are spaced a certain way. And obviously with that dowel pin, this only goes on one way. A couple notes I want to make. You can see in there the bolt holes. You can see the back of the bolt holes. They're all captive. So on some cars, these bolt holes actually go right through this into the kind of oil pan area, and they're actually sealing bolts. So if you don't put sealant on them, you'll have an oil leak from the flywheel bolts. This car, we don't have to worry about that, so that's good. And we can even see this is the starter, and the starter gear is just on the interior of this flywheel ring. So that's what happens when you start your car. That gear kind of pushes out and catches the teeth on the flywheel, and then it retracts back once we're going. And then the torque converter has been set back into the transmission properly, and then that bolts to the flex disc here, and that's why there's this window in the back of the bell housing. So once you've got the transmission on, you can rotate this around and install these bolts through the flex plate into the torque converter one by one, and then after that, really it's a job done. But just kind of interesting how it works here with the flex plate torque converter with this automatic transmission. And now the technician is counter holding the flex disc with the special pry tool there, a common technique, and then in a crisscross pattern, torquing the flywheel bolts. And because these bolts are one-time use, they're torque to yield, the technician is now marking the bolts because after the initial torque, they get a 90-degree turn, which is why they're commonly referred to maybe as a stretch bolt, because they will slightly stretch on that final torque setting, or rather the 90-degree turn. So he's marking them so we can keep track of how far it's turned and make sure we get exactly the specified 90-degree angle. So now we're doing that final 90-degree rotation, and this can be tricky with one person. So we have another technician just counter holding the crankshaft bolt there so it doesn't turn on us. Of course, with this additional turn as well, it's okay using the little pry tool to hold the flywheel on the initial torque. It's not that much, but on something like this, we don't want to even slightly risk damaging the flywheel by using that pry tool method. So we're just counter holding the crankshaft bolt there on the front of the engine. And then the technician is really dialing in that 90-degree turn, which is why we have those very nice marks on there. And now the transmission has been mounted back onto the engine. All the bolts are in, including the ones at the top of the bell housing that you really can't see from here. Those are actually very hard to get to. And the torque converter has been bolted to the flex plate as well. We can see things are a little wet. We've just been starting to clean the transmission because, of course, it was full of oil, because when the rear main seal leaks, the airflow into the car has the oil travel back and kind of get all over everything. That's why there's actually a lot of oil like on the heat shields over here. So, of course, this will get all cleaned, and now we're just going to start by reassembling everything as we removed it. So starting to put on some of the auxiliary lines and things on the transmission. We need to put the cross member back on. Of course, it's being supported by this pull jack right now. And now it's looking more complete under here. Some of the accessory lines are on, some of the fluid lines here. The cross member is on. And we've been putting back up, the drive shaft is already up here. We have some of the shields on, and we're just starting to reattach the exhaust. Of course, the O2 sensors will go back in as well. And it's really just starting to look like a complete car again. And just like that, the technician is taking the Mercedes on a test drive. It's all back together. So I'm sure he enjoyed the nice smooth running CLK, especially with that transmission service. And now what he's gonna do is put it up in the air and just verify that all the leaks have been fixed. And now with the CLK up in the air, let's take a look. Check this out. No more leaks. Such a satisfying thing to find, to see after an intensive job like this. And the technician did do an extended road test. So the vehicle's been heat cycled, and I can feel the heat coming off the exhaust. We have the catalytic converters right here, and he really did a nice test drive. We've let the car sit up on the lift for a little while, so in case anything was leaking and needed to run down a little bit, we did give it time for that. But it is bone dry under here, super clean. And that really wraps up this video on doing this rear main seal, as well as some of the other things in the same area, like the transmission service at the same time. And I've been reporting from our Boxborough service center. We do have some other exciting things in here, like a carbon cleaning on this Tiguan, and this G550. We've done some extensive mechanical and cosmetic work on it. We really will work on any type of vehicle, but we do love and specialize in the European vehicles. I hope you learned something new and enjoyed the video. Of course, if you need any servicing needs for your vehicle, feel free to reach out to us, service@alphacars.com, or give us a call at 978-263-9000. This has been Ian reporting from our Boxborough Service Center. Please leave a like on this video and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the latest motoring content.